If you look across the medical landscape today, so many times people are told that once your metabolism slows down and once you cross the line into insulin resistance or insulin dependence, any type of medication dependence, it's a progressive, irreversible state. Many are told that it is inevitable that almost everyone on this progression needs increasing doses of medications, often for the rest of their life. But right now, beneath the surface of mainstream medicine and increasingly in the mainstream, a global shift is happening. Researchers around the world are demonstrating that we have been looking at this problem backwards. People with the worst metabolic dysfunction have been told that they can't practice low carbohydrate eating or fasting, when research increasingly shows they actually have the most to gain from these practices. In reality, people in this situation are showing the way out for everyone. Today, I'm taking you inside a randomized controlled trial out of Europe that shows, in a gold standard trial, what I presented from my research last week. You can actively throw out the fat storage and insulin dependency, throw it into reverse, even in severe cases of metabolic dysfunction, like insulin-using type 2 diabetes. So whether you are here because you are fighting some stubborn weight loss plateau or you want to safely eliminate your dependency on diabetic medications, the data that we are breaking down today provides incredible insight into a scientific blueprint to unlock the fat cell that we are looking to unlock. We are looking at the beginnings of a global movement to crush insulin resistance. Really excited to bring you this information today. I hope you are well. Say hello in the chat if you are here live, and if you're here on the replay, share your thoughts and your reflections as we go. Put them in the comments. Let's have an ongoing discussion about it. So I want to start just by giving you a global perspective from this article in Frontiers in Nutrition. Effects of intermittent fasting on A1C and weight in insulin versus oral hypoglycemic therapy treated patients with type 2 diabetes. Systematic review. So this review is taking a bunch of studies, 12 of them, over 1,400 participants in the studies who are using diabetic medications, split between insulin users and people who are using non-insulin medicines to bring the blood sugar down. And so the thing I really want to dial in on in this, on a large number of patients, look at benefits in A1C, right in the middle here. A1C reduction of about 0.5% in the oral med users and 2.8% in the insulin users. So like I was saying in my introductory comments, it's like we are looking at this backwards. In the short term, you say, is like just dramatic. And what I mean by short term is say who has the most benefits. If someone uses a dietary process, including fasting and eliminating processed carbs, and you use it like as a lifetime lifestyle, you're probably never going to get diabetes type 2 in the first place, most likely. And so does that person actually have more benefit? But what this shows is that in the short term, like the worse the situation, the more dramatic you can see it. That's what it is. In the short term, the benefit just becomes more and more striking. Actually, the worse the situation it is. And so this is what research like this is going to help to turn around. We are preventing the people who need it most, right? Who have the most to gain. We have been preventing from using our most effective lifestyle practices, but that is turning around thanks to global research. So countries where these results are from: Austria, China, India, Netherlands, New Zealand, Lebanon, Thailand, Australia, Singapore, and the UK. These are where the studies were all done that formed this meta-analysis. Across the entire planet is showing the same thing across populations. And then I'm going to add in here, and the US, because these are all randomized controlled trials. My study, an observational study, so we can kind of tack that on there. I say, yes, it's an observational study, but people had been on insulin for 10 years. Very unlikely without the protocol, probably the insulin wouldn't have just disappeared, probably. And then I add Canada because I'm going to show you a study at the end of our talk here that is happening right now in Canada which is completely incredible. Very exciting information in that. Cannot wait for that. All right. ADA, the American Diabetes Association, the standards of care. So for decades in medicine, if a patient with type 2 diabetes, and I got to say, almost anybody even trying to lose weight, asks their care team about skipping meals or practicing some type of fasting, they have been met with fear and derision, been chastised. Don't do that. It's dangerous. Your blood sugar is going to crash. You're going to harm your metabolism. Right? Things are going to get worse for you, and people have been admonished this way. Makes it very difficult, conflicting information from healthcare providers. We have been taught to feed medications instead of fix underlying metabolic dysfunction. So, yeah, if you don't get meds out of the way, can your blood sugar go too low? Absolutely it can, but look at it from the other perspective. Here's a tool to help get meds out of the way. This is what is incredible. And as we get out of the way of the system, see that bringing insulin down, getting meds out of the way, and using powerful lifestyle practices, that you can bring healing to a situation where people thought it was never possible. And isn't that better? Yes, it is very exciting, I will tell you. So fast forward to today. Here we are, the American Diabetes Association itself, official standards of care, now explicitly recognizing intermittent fasting as an effective, evidence-based tool for weight reduction and glycemic management. Like, how incredible is that? Who ever thought that we would see the day? And it has shifted because clinical trials from institutions around the entire world continually demonstrate that healing is possible in the metabolism as we open up this space. And I say we should not limit the people who are able to experience this. And the people who need it most should not be prevented from utilizing these practices. Thoughtful healthcare system and practitioners should help to use the actual information that is coming out in research to change the way we practice medicine and help to crush the insulin resistance. It can be crushed. That's what I showed in my data last week. If you didn't see the talk, see it. I'll show a couple slides in here too from it. Here's some information right out of the current standards of care guidelines on fasting and timing of food intake. I just think that this is really fascinating. Chrono-Nutrition, an emerging nutrition and biology subspecialty. Can you envision the future where fasting consultation and science actually a medical subspecialty? I just got to tell you. Aimed toward increasing the understanding of how timing of food ingestion affects metabolic health. So right here, do you see where we are? We've gone through the calorie era, and all of a sudden standards of care are recognized. It's not just hit your calorie target. It's like, how is the health of metabolism and how is our timing of food getting there? This is like a breath of fresh air to me. Glucose metabolism follows a circadian rhythm through diurnal variation of glucose tolerance peaks during the daylight hours when food is consumed. Some preliminary studies showing cardiometabolic benefits when food is consumed earlier in the day. Absolutely, I cited all those in my study. Similarly, circadian disruptions found in shift workers increase risk of type 2 diabetes. An evolving area of research, much more research to come. Thank goodness. Isn't that awesome? All right, here is a section on non-religious fasting. They have a section on religious fasting, which to me is amazing when you just start to think. I'll tell you my experience as someone talking about fasting over the years, probably 15 plus years in clinic. You know, people afraid to even talk about fasting in clinic very often because they have been met with condescension. Especially people who have a religious practice like Ramadan fasting, people fasting for different Jewish holidays or Lent or all of these sort of things. And people are like, oh, can we talk about it? I'm like, we can definitely talk about it. But there weren't formal guidelines. And now the standard of care is recognizing, okay, fasting is a part of human culture and tradition, and we're starting to respect it and realize the profound power of it. But here's a section, non-religious fasting, okay? Talking about research of randomized controlled trials, looking at it. And this section, I think, is interesting. Authors concluded that intermittent energy restriction produces small but significant reductions in waist circumference and fat-free mass, but here's the hedge, were otherwise not superior to continuous energy restriction eating patterns. So this is like the not nicest way possible of saying this, basically equivalent, you know? And so we've gone from a space which was openly hostile and antagonistic all the way to the place where we're just basically saying they're pretty much equal, you know? It's like we have jumped light years in a very short amount of time. And what I say is that the wheels of history are grinding, and we can revisit this in the coming years, and we're going to see a continued progression. Because as we head through their writing, you know, they even, you know, bring in, you know, so many of the benefits. Like this place this article goes on. Generally, time-restricted eating or shortening the eating window can be adapted to any eating pattern. Isn't it awesome? It is. I just love it. And has been shown to be safe for adults with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Is like just the idea. I mean, I've talked with endocrinologists. I've helped people with type 1 diabetes, which to me requires a lot of diligent clinical care. You know, you can run into issues with it, have to be very thoughtful. But, you know, we basically take type 1 diabetes in this country and solve it by turning it into type 2. And, you know, if you have type 1, you might be experiencing that. I've helped people unwind that safely. And I've been, you know, treated somewhat unkindly by endocrinologists who said it's irresponsible. But check it out, American Diabetes Association. Standards of care, people. People with diabetes who are taking insulin and or secretagogues should be medically monitored during the fasting period. Obviously, yes. Because of the simplicity of intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating, they may be useful strategies for people with diabetes who are looking for practical eating management tools. Oh yeah. I don't know about you, I could read this like 10 times. I'm just so happy about it. Should also be noted that the principles of healthy eating still apply during non-fasting times. They are so thoughtful. This is true. It's not like you're going to open up fasting space and then you just fill your eating window full of, you know, unhealthy things and think that you're going to be better off. Don't do that. Okay. Type 1 diabetes, they just had the thoughtful note, use CGM. I say everybody should have a CGM, even if you don't have diabetes. If you're just trying to lose weight, get a CGM. It's like looking inside the body, see how is the metabolism working. You can watch the energy flow right in from the food into the body. You can watch the bloodstream. You can just see how is the insulin working, how does the blood sugar flow, how is the energy flowing in the body. So I love where that has gone, and a big reason that the mainstream guidelines are changing the way they are is because of this trial, which was included in the meta-analysis that I showed earlier. The Interfast 2 trial, efficacy and safety of intermittent fasting in people with insulin-treated type 2 diabetes, randomized controlled trial from Austria. And this study is really like a mini version of my study, except they had a control group in it. Here are the quick details on their study. 46 insulin-using patients with diabetes split into 2 groups, a control group, so their intervention group, the same size as my study, demographics basically the same. And they did it for 3 months of 18-6, but look at it, only 3 days a week. So they're doing 18-6 3 days a week and no intervention, just eat your standard diet the other 4 days of the week. And so we're just hitting like a little bit of fasting into this group to test it out, see if it can be done safely, and see what the effect is. And they did it an early window, breakfast, lunch. They were targeting just 25% energy decrease through that process. They're looking at A1C, weight, and insulin everybody getting a CGM on this study. And then they had an insulin reduction protocol, like if you watch my talk from last week, like I had, but because it's such a more mild intervention than mine was, I dialed in both super low carb, which they did not do, and then fasting. Basically, I say do it every day, an 18-6, a 16-8, if you can. And then we have like Grace, who say nobody has to do it. On average, people in my study did it like 5.5 days. So out of 7, I say not too bad. And here we're doing it 3 days. So they dial the insulin back to start 20% on the fasting days, get the short-acting insulin out. That's what my protocol is. And then here's the type of results that they got. 20 out of 22 completed, just like my study is just a tiny little bit of people who don't want to do it. People excited to do it. Like, you're telling me I can take less insulin? It makes the situation safer. That's what people have got to see. No change in control group A1C, but the intervention group doing the fasting, the A1C got better. And they had a small but significant reduction in their total insulin use. And they lost 11 pounds over 3 months, as opposed to the control group that gained 3 pounds. And so, bringing this in, I'll show it in the next slide, comparing it to mine. But here's the thing. There's like a little nugget that is buried down in the back of this study that might even be the most amazing thing to me. 2 things, I think, in this as we read through it. After 12 weeks of intervention, the fasting group showed a significant reduction in weight compared with the control group, who gained weight, and they reduced fat mass, okay? There was no statistically significant difference in change in lean mass or bone density. So this is the thing. People didn't lose muscle. Like, I cannot tell you, almost every time I talk in public about fasting, people say, aren't you going to lose muscle? And it's like, no, especially not if you bring some thoughtful movement into your practice and you get some good protein in your eating window. But here is another point that is showing in a patient. This wasn't an exercise trial. This is just people with diabetes who came and did a bit of intermittent fasting, and they did not lose any lean mass. And then here's the real amazing thing. The rest, they measured resting metabolic rate in everybody in the control group and the intervention group. This is where we're trying to get into. We talk a lot about this, about the metabolism and the slowing and all these things. This is fascinating. Resting metabolic rate was not different between the fasting and control group, both at baseline and after 12 weeks. No difference observed in the change of physical activity level between the groups. So isn't this fascinating? I love that they did this. If they had accomplished all of these results, but you say, oh, but the metabolism was slowed down, are they going to gain all the weight back? This is what happens so often in standard dieting. But this rarely happens. This is not what you see in people who stick with a fasting process. It's not what you see. You do see plateau spaces, right? But a plateau space, you tend to flow through it, working through it, and resolve downward. This is what people see. You don't see the slowing and the significant weight gain in it. And lots of studies increasingly showing this, and this was a big one. And I think this is one of the big keys that is really changing people's mind, is the fact that all the arguments, like you're hurting people's metabolism, you're setting people up for something worse in the future, these are falling apart the more research is being done. So I love that. I'm just plugging my study. I've got a link for it in the description. My study is like a super version of the Interfast 2 study. The demographics are almost the same of the people. My participants in my study using more insulin, and this is crushing insulin right here. These are all the individual participants in my study, 19 of them, and their total insulin dose at the start, at 3 months, and at the end. And 14 out of 19 people completely off insulin by 3 months, actually. And then the couple that stayed on, significantly over 70% of the insulin that they're using gone. So I just think it's very interesting. Our Wisconsin study, me and friends at University of Wisconsin did a prospective observational study, people using insulin about 10 years, 72 units compared to the Austrian study, same age range, similar amount of insulin, a little bit less. We're dosing them. This is what I want to show you in this data. You can dose the amount of fasting, and the more you dose it, you can dial in the intensity of it. I say they're doing a light dose of fasting, got incredible results, changing the world with the mainstream guidelines. I say take a Dr. Z dose and dial in, and you can get even more incredible results. And you see, like, 73% stopped insulin completely. It's like a much more powerful result than they got in the Interfast study. And that is, I've been replicating that for 15 years. And we're going to keep going. We're going to amp it up. We're going to help more and more people. If you know anybody who is on insulin and you want them to have results like this, if they're open to it, just let's have a chat. Tell them, have a chat with Dr. Z. I'll help you out. They lost a lot of weight. What's interesting here in this, my study twice as long as theirs, but they're tracking pretty good, even with a mild intervention, and that's fasting. And this is like just showing you, like I like to say on the channel, dial into it, right? I want people, this is why I say simple fasting. I don't do giant extended fasting on my channel, because I'm like, listen, let's just see how much benefit we can get from even little bits. Take a light dose of fasting, like the Interfast protocol, see what happens. And if you need more powers, we can dial it up. And if you're really stuck, look, you can dial in this process. There is a lot of power on tap, but you approach it in a very, very thoughtful way. Okay, here's some super big news, and I'm really excited to tell you about this. The Tea Time trial. Oh man, I love these people, researchers from Toronto, and they are running a large randomized controlled trial. They're running it right now. And so we're going to get the results of this, I think, next year. But the fact that they call it tea time, these people dialed in. I love it. Time-restricted eating for type 2 diabetes and metabolic health. The tea time trial study protocol. All right, study hasn't happened. This is just them publishing what they're doing. And what they are doing is taking an 18-6 protocol, which you see down in the middle. Their eating window is so interesting. They're picking from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I love that they're doing this, because there is literature, and we've talked about this on the channel a lot, that an eating window earlier in the day, breakfast and lunch, is somewhat powerful and more powerful in some studies than a late window, lunch, dinner, or a later window. But I'll tell you, in my study, when I recruited for it, I reviewed all the data with it, but I say you can pick whatever window you want. Literally, out of the 20 people who went through my study, all 20 picked the late window. Everybody picked the late window. My experience of counseling, hundreds, probably thousands of people through these sort of decisions, it's about 3 to 5% will pick the early window. And if that, when they're starting out especially, and if that works for somebody, you say, I'm a breakfast person, I don't mind fasting in the evening, powerful practice. Stick with it, it's great. But most people voluntarily choose the later eating window, because it keeps meals at socially conforming times, and it's easy for people to have a coffee or tea with somebody, and then have a lunch and a dinner, and then, dinner, especially a more social meal, keeps those meals there. So I love, we're going to get some big literature on that window, and I totally love it. 18.6, and here's the incredible thing. They're doing it for an entire year. So we're going to take the biggest RCT with a tight intervention in a window that most people actually use, and run it for an entire year. And they are assessing beta cell function and insulin resistance and so many good things that they are studying. I won't bog us down. I said most of that. I just wanted to look through their objectives. So objectives of this study, 3 main objectives. Firstly, primary objective to evaluate the impact of TRE on beta cell function in people with type 2 diabetes. These people aren't insulin using, mind you. This is just people with type 2 diabetes without insulin. And so this is going to be an amazing thing to see. After an entire year, what is the actual beta cell function? How is it doing? Second objective, evaluate insulin resistance in people implementing TRE in comparison to those who are applying standard lifestyle intervention. It's going to be incredible to see. And lastly, third objective, evaluate the impact of TRE on glucose homeostasis. This is going to say, what's the A1C? Is it working, compared to standard lifestyle intervention? Our hypothesis, 52 weeks of TRE will yield improvement in beta cell function, reduced insulin resistance, and improved glucose control compared to standard lifestyle recommendations. I believe it. I believe this hypothesis. And if you ask me to wager on it, I would wager that it's going to be good. I've got to tell you. I would wager a lot. I will triple down. And see, here's the thing. Is fasting is free. So I triple down on fasting. I triple the zero cost of it, and it's still zero. So I feel pretty good about it. I'd triple way down on fasting on it. So it'll be interesting to see. This is science. Science, you see what does the science say? But this is an incredibly thoughtfully designed study, and it is coming on the heels of everything that I have already shown you, and this is like the next step. And I personally we deal with whatever the results are, and we be thoughtful and learn from it. But I think that this study is going to really just blow the doors off the entire thing, because it's going to be pretty hard to argue with it. So people been told we're on a one-way street. I took this slide from the presentation last week. Insulin resistance is not a one-way street. There are powerful tools, and we should not be preventing people from using them. We should be overhauling our healthcare system to stop feeding medications and start feeding people in a way that helps them to need less medications. And we should have clinics that are more of a deep prescription service, like I am running. Come see me, Fitchburg, Wisconsin, and I'll help you with it in the most thoughtful way. I want people to take, I'm not anti-medicine, want people taking everything that helps them, just nothing that you don't really need. Insulin-using patients especially have the most dramatic short-term benefit, and they are showing us the way, and these studies are just incredible, both for people on insulin, for all people with diabetes, for every human being which is trying to never get diabetes too, which is just basically everybody, is just showing us the way. The insulin state, is like you don't have a blood sugar problem and you don't have a CGM, you're not looking, it's hard to see the issue. Because we're so far out on the curve on insulin use is something we can see so tangibly. You say, how powerful is fasting? Well, in clinical studies, it's, it can be as powerful as 50 units of insulin, our most powerful diabetic medication. So it's very powerful. Here's a couple quick hits. So anybody's here, look, this doesn't have to be complicated. I've gone through a lot of data. Look, we're talking about eating beautiful, healthy, low carbohydrate food. You want to overhaul your insulin resistance and blood sugar process. Look, I give you 2 meals right here. If you eat something like this in a day, no processed food, lean, protein and healthy fat-rich food, nutrients, here's this is the type of thing I'm talking about, and about the type of portions that I would really like. But you can experiment with it. If you had 2 or 3 eggs and 2 or 3 salmons instead, and it was working for you, okay, beautiful. You take foods like this, you put them into a fasting window like this to start. This is level 1, okay? Find an eating window, like a lunch dinner, a breakfast lunch, a brunch dinner, some sort of process. These are giving you 18-6 windows, and then that's flexible. You can work your way there. That's level 1, and then you can dial that up, something much more powerful if you need more powerful. This is a process. See, it's simple. It's free. It's increasingly, the data shows you dial into it. Effective for a wide range of metabolic processes. So how does it feel? This is what I say. How does it feel to see fasting brought into mainstream standard of care guidelines? I say, for me, it feels like, what planet am I living on? But I'm very happy about it. And I got to tell you, sometimes I've been cynical. I've been a little cynical about it over the years, but I'll come around. I say, let's just go, global movement to crush insulin resistance. I'm on board. And if this becomes like a total mainstream thing and everybody doing, I say hallelujah. I mean, it's gotta, right? I mean, the data is so good. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see in the coming years, the research is going to keep just rolling and building this out. And you're going to see it just flow through the healthcare system. This is what I really want to see. I want to see fasting flowing through the healthcare system and give every possible benefit to every person who could possibly have it. Nobody being blocked from it. Nobody have to do it, right? You want to keep standard sort of dietary practices. Eat a breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner snack, wake up, snack. And does that work for you? It's like, whatever. A lot of people's not working for. So try something new, okay? Data will support it. Data does support it. Very happy to hear your thoughts and reflections on this process. What questions do you have? If you are wanting to really dial in on the blood sugar situation, I have built a program, Dr. Z Method. I got a wonderful course that'll walk you through really deep on the ideas of it across all domains of life. How are we eating, and how does fasting get brought into this, and how does movement get brought into this, and how does our mindset affect it, because this is a huge thing for sure. And then bringing it all in, how do you monitor it, and all these things. And we got thoughtful people coming into that space who are actually doing it, and then we're meeting weekly. It's not any kind of medical service. I'm not prescribing or de-prescribing anything there. It's an educational service. It's like we got a support group happening, people actually doing it and have resources. Like, how do you talk to your doctor in a way that they will listen to and respect? I got tools to help you do that so that you can have a good relationship with the medical team. And especially now that we got standard of care things, I tell you, most doctors do not know. I was meeting with a doctor yesterday. They had no idea. Okay, no idea. And they're managing hundreds of people on insulin, and they did not know. Okay. And so I was telling them, they're like, it's pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing. So maybe your doctor doesn't know. Okay, I help you out. And you can also go to simplefasting.com. I have an article there. I should put that in the description, medical provider resource, where I'm listing through and going through the research. So if you're trying to talk to medical professionals, like a dietitian or a CDE, and they're like, oh, don't do fasting, this is not good, they'd be like, well, check out this website. Doctor's got all these articles. See, it's not just some internet guy. It's not just one person with their perspectives and opinions, okay? I've got plenty of those. But look, I'm citing the research. The research is the thing that is changing the mind. And I tried to throw my little 2 cents into the pot with my observational study, which I think also is profound. I think a protocol like mine is also the next step that needs to happen. If anybody comes through in some miracle of the internet, some people come through and watching this, do you happen to be a healthcare provider, a researcher, an endocrinologist? Are you as inspired as I am about the data, and would you like to work together? Maybe do some sort of independent clinical study. I have a mind to try to find a way to do it out of the university system. I could come back. I would come back to any university. If you want to launch a big RCT, try to get a giant grant, I would come and consult and help. Probably anywhere in the US. Maybe anywhere. Let's talk. Shoot me an email, drz@simplefasting.com, if you would like to chat. Anybody. You don't have to be a researcher, a healthcare person, or anybody. Are you interested in this topic? Go drz@simplefasting.com. And we shall chat. And check out drzmethod.com. You can contact me there too. That's the more diabetes-focused one. Okay, that was a marathon for me. I spent a lot of time digging in. I've read so many different studies, and for myself personally, going through this process, the last couple weeks, I've been dialing in the last couple weeks really onto the upgrades of the research situation with type 2 diabetes. I've been inspired by it personally. I just think both for the diabetes space, also for the weight management space, and this is where we are especially. It's the exact same physiology is happening. Insulin resistance is happening across the spectrum of weight gain, prediabetes, diabetes, severe diabetes, all a spectrum where it is. And so dialing in on some of this thinking, take it into a general weight loss space. Realize, okay, look what this data is showing. We can implement fasting processes without busting our muscles, without slowing our metabolism. Insulin resistance going away. Insulin resistance, like I said in the subtitle for our session, unlocking the fat cell. Insulin like a lock on the fat cell. By implementing these processes, right? We're trying to pick the lock. We're trying to lower the insulin to get that locking system out of the way so that the energy can be released out of the fat cell. As blood sugar is going down, medication's getting out of the way. The thing that happens, body knows that the energy is there and it can release it. And that process can take longer than you wish. But this process, we dial in. Using every tool that we have, fasting not the only tool, but we bring every conceivable good thing, the movement, the mindfulness, the eating, the fasting, all together into a system breakthrough. That's what I try to help you do on this session. I am streaming live every weekday, 6:30 a.m. Central Time. And we do deep dive talks like this, and then much lighter sessions like, was it just yesterday, doing some reading of some interesting poetry, okay? Really trying to get the mindset in a good space. Beautiful to have you here with me. I will look forward to connecting with you again soon. Have a beautiful day, everybody.